Is a buyer's agent actually worth it? We've got Joe Tucker from Property Principles. He's obviously a buyer's agent, also co-founder of the Oz Property Investors Group, debating none other than PK Gupta. Now, PK runs a very successful property investing course, also a very successful Facebook group, and is famously not a big fan of buyer's agents. I'm going to be reading out 4 statements. They're going to be giving me their responses to each of them as to why they think they're true or why they think they're totally a farce. And by the end of this episode, we should have a lot more clarity to the question, is a buyer's agent actually worth it? Joe, PK, how you going, guys?
G'day, mate. How are we?
Hey, Todd.
And this is a little bit exciting. I know I say every episode is exciting, but I think this is really like, I want to say back from popular demand, but this has never happened before. Not just on our show, but I think like in general, like maybe somewhere in the universe this has happened, but really, like, is about buyer's agent worth it? Seems to be a question that always gets thrown around. I know it's thrown around in your group quite a lot, Joe. I don't know if it's thrown around quite as much in yours, PK, but just even in the circles that we all sort of move in, it's something that is a very common piece. To have both of you on the show, obviously Joe Tucker, an avid buyer's agent yourself, very successful in what you're doing. PK, your course is it's making a lot of people a lot of money. It's doing good things as well. Both of you guys are very good at what you do, but you both come at it from very different angles. So before we get into the debate, I just wanted to know, do you guys have anything that you wanted to sort of kick things off with?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I was saying before as well, and I just want everyone to know, even though I'm going to rip Joe to shreds in this debate, no, I'm just joking. I actually have
I like how we have the 3 nicest people in real estate in a debate.
No, that's seriously what I mean. Like, you know, without going on and on, I just want everyone to know I have a lot of respect for Joe, and he's actually a good buyer's agent. He hasn't paid me to say this, and even though I'm going to rip him to shreds.
Okay, yeah. Joe, anything you want to say?
Appreciate that. It's a good point to make when you are going to lose a debate, is just to, you know, build the other person up. But no, and another side point is, you know, PK is big in the education space, and there's no way that I can be anti-education. I'm going to say that, and then friendliness is over. It's done. We are making...
Let's just drop it there, Todd. You can put links to both the BA and my course service in the show notes. Done.
Man, this is like smack talk and then like a pat on the back all at the same time.
A hug.
Why don't we move into the statements? Okay. Like, as you guys know, and I've explained earlier, the rules basically are I read the statements. Now, one of you can jump in. You're either agreeing or disagreeing. Both of you have a chance to answer those. So if we kick it off with the very first statement, outplaying a pro footballer, outdiagnosing a doctor, getting more laughs than Jimmy Carr just isn't going to happen. Without the help of a pro in your corner, taking on a seasoned sales agent means you are almost certainly going to get a subpar outcome. Who'd like to go first?
Oh, I'll jump in because you have to agree with that. Got nothing to do with buyer's agents, but you have to agree with the question. You can't get more laughs than Jimmy Carr. But no, of course it's about buyer's agents. Like, I guess financial freedom isn't an easy goal to attain, but it's a worthwhile one, right? Like, it's kind of like climbing Everest. It's a journey. You're going to need a whole heap of preparation. You're going to need a whole heap of education. You're going to need a solid team around you. So using a buyer's agent is helping you avoid the wrong path. We want you to get to the top as quickly as possible. Like, your goal is here. You are currently here with these type of resources. What is the path we need to take? Because some people can go, you know, vertically at high speed on a rocket. That's not always the case. You have to do some climbing up the hill. So the goal of a buyer's agent is to make sure that you don't take the wrong path. And by taking the wrong path, that might be buying a house and land package, and you have to sit on that for 3 years. And then you realize, oh, snap, I need to come back down, restart my journey, go all the way up again and keep going. Property, we all agree, is probably going to be the largest investment that you're ever going to make. Messing that up can cost you tens of thousands of dollars in the short term, but in the long term, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And especially when you're first starting out, the first 3 properties that you go out and buy are going to be the most important. They are the ones that set you up for success to allow you to speed on through to scale your portfolio. So if your first purchase isn't up to scratch, then you're kind of risking quite a lot. That's my view.
Okay. So just if I can try and summarize before you jump in there, PK. So for you, it's really about the importance of knowing that you're on the right path. And that's what you feel a BA can bring to the table around this statement.
Yeah. Well, and also look at the statistics, right? It was saying that 71% of people will only one property, 19 own two, 6% own three. So 96% of investors get stuck at 1 to 3 properties. Like there is a time and space in your portfolio for a high cash flow. There is a time and space for a high growth. There is a time and space for a residential development. There's a time and space for different assets. But if you get them wrong in the wrong sequence, it's going to slow your progress down.
Okay. All right, PK. Agree or disagree?
I feel I have to disagree, and I do disagree. But that was a good, what a good answer, Joe. It's hard to kind of come up with stuff, but look, I think what you've said is both true and untrue. Most people do get stuck after one property. It is good to get education. It is good not to make mistakes. Obviously, the first property is the most important one. All those things I agree with, but I think how you evaluate determines your result. How you evaluate something determines the result that you get. So, for example, if you're using a speedometer, you can only ever ascertain the speed or velocity of something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the problems in the Australian residential property market is all the content is created, or 95, 99% of the content is created by buyer's agents, right? So even just to pick up on something you said there, how most people get stuck after one property. It's true statistically that most people only have one property. This is property investors, but that doesn't mean they get stuck, because actually, if you look at the statistics, more than 50% of property investors are accidental property investors. They had a home, they didn't sell it, but they upgraded or downgraded and they kept it as an investment property. So it's very easy to take statistics and manipulate them and maneuver them. Not that you're doing that, Joe, necessarily, but to say a rhetoric. And that's my issue with buyers agents, because the content, fantastic podcasts like this as well, it's dominated by buyers agents. People are only hearing one side of the narrative. It's like on social media, you click a Trump ad or something like that, all of a sudden you become a Republican, right? Because it just fulfills what your bias is, your cognitive bias. So that's the first point. The second point is, should you use a professional? Like on the surface of it, like it seems incoherent to say no, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is that it's not a fair comparison to say that a buyer's agent is like a professional in the traditional respect of a professional, like a doctor or dentist or mechanic. Age-old question, hey, use a buyer's agent. Who would ever service their car by themselves? Who would ever perform open heart surgery by themselves, etc.? Who would ever do a root canal by themselves? Use a professional.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 100% of people in those things, when you need a root canal, you go to a dentist. However, almost 100% of people, when they go to buy an investment property, don't use a buyer's agent. Okay, they do it themselves. So this argument that you need to use a professional or a buyer's agent, why would you not do that? Because you never, do surgery on yourself. That's not, the premise is incorrect, because most people do it themselves. And most people in the last 50, 100 years of Australian history have been doing it themselves. So I think of it more like a gardener. If you don't have any interest or time in gardening, you don't want to learn about the seasons, about flowers and things, hire a landscaper or a gardener, but you can do this yourself. It's not actually that difficult. And the last thing I'll say is that it's actually, and this is very controversial, forgive me for saying it, it's actually, there's more of a chance of getting a subpar outcome if you're using a buyer's agent, especially the big buyer's agents, the big and famous buyer's agents that you hear all around different media channels, than if you do it yourself. And there's various reasons, but a couple are they have a churn and burn model because they have too many clients for what they can service, or a number of good properties available for sale. And also there's no accountability. You do surgery, you get a good outcome, you're getting better. For the property, you don't actually realize if it's good or bad until maybe 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line. So, those are just some of the things that are coming to mind.
Okay. So just surmising there, it sounds like it's almost the comparison of like, if you're a heart surgeon, of course, you wouldn't do surgery on yourself. Or no, other way around. If you're not a heart surgeon, even if you are a heart surgeon, I don't think you're operating on yourself.
Good luck.
But are you sort of saying that the comparison isn't fair to some of these professionals because maybe you've had to study for 4, 6, 8 years, whatever it is, but then someone else can be a buyer's agent, do it for 2 months and go, hey, you wouldn't operate on yourself. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, the majority of people who need surgery use a surgeon, but the majority of people who need to buy a property don't use a buyer's agent. So it's not a fair, and I'm a buyer's agent. I have a buyer's agent qualification. It took me all of 1 month to get it. So I agree with your point, the tenure or the rigor around the qualifications is also not comparable.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's actually a good point, because the qualification behind a buyer's agent is exactly the same as a real estate agent. And it's an area that I think people should focus on a little bit, like the industry should focus on, to make it a little bit of a harder barrier to entry. But it is still the same qualification that requires a real estate agent license, and you can get your certificate in a month, but you can't own and operate a buyer's agency with a trust account within a month. You need to be under a real estate agent. But also,
can I just disagree with that? So I don't operate as a buyer's agent. I wouldn't do a buyer's agent service even if someone paid me $50,000. But I was able to get up and running with a real estate license, and I could take clients within a month and a half of doing the real estate license course in Queensland. And now my Queensland license can be transferred to all states and territories without any further qualification. So that's the reality. And, there's a lot of ways in the last year or two where now 3,000 new buyer's agents that have just become buyer's agents in the last 3 years have done exactly that.
Okay. So one of the things is that you're talking about is like the statistics behind buyer's agents and new buyer's agents. So if there's 3,000 new buyer's agents, there must be a market for that demand. So people are wanting more and more to use a buyer's agent. About 4% of transactions throughout Australia are done by a buyer's agent. And that's a very hard number to keep.
What's the source for that, Joe?
The internet. I saw it somewhere.
I saw it in a Facebook group. No, just joking.
No, but in the US, again, I don't have a source for this one. It's about 50% of the transactions done with a buyer's agent. Buyer's agents is a very new, it's been around for a little while in Australia, but a very niche. Now it's just starting to get some wings as I guess the market's expanded and people want help and they don't know and understand the research behind it.
I do agree with that. In the US, the statistics are actually more than 75%. And what you're seeing is that you're seeing that the buyer's agent fee in the US is more like $2,000 to $3,000. So the market, water finds its own level. The supply demand has found its own level. And I think that might be what will happen here as people realize the value of a buyer's agent.
Yeah, depending on the state that you're in, my understanding in the States, and just before I get pressed on this, I do not have a source for this. But my understanding just from watching a lot of $1 million listing is that they generally have either a 5 or 6% commission that's paid. Part goes to the buyer's agent, part goes to the sales agent, but it's actually paid by the seller. So it's a totally different model that they actually operate in. And I think even some states operate differently within the states as well. But it's definitely a lot more mainstream to have someone in your corner helping you buy over there.
Yeah. In what situation, PK, do you feel like BAs do add value and can be worthwhile for clients?
Are you allowed to ask those questions?
I was going to say, Joe, as much as I am interested in hearing the answer for that, I think we should probably stick on the statements. But
I'll try to weave in the answer, Joe, in a Todd question later on. But no, it's a good question.
And if we get into the next statement here, a buyer's agent has no incentive to really push a deal and negotiate the best price. They only get paid to close deals. You'll never really know if they've actually got you a great deal or they've just told you they have. PK, did you want to jump in first this time?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's a really, really interesting question. And obviously the answer is nuanced. And I'm kind of in this unique situation without kind of, tooting my own horn where, I have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of clients now where they have used buyer's agents before. And because of the type of service we provide, I see the deals that they've bought and I can see, oh, look, those buyer's agents, they consistently tend to be really good ones. And these other buyer's agents, which are household names, what are they doing buying for this client in that location or that type of property? My conclusion is that a lot of buyer's agents, not all of them, but I would even go as far as to say the majority of them, they get paid to sell you a property. I know they're not sales agents. I know they're buyer's agents, but they get paid when you buy a property. So there's a conflict of interest. They get paid when you close a deal. And I've experienced this so many times where some buyer's agents, definitely not Joe, but some buyer's agents, they're almost like the extended arm of a sales agent. They have that really good relationship with the sales agent. Every time the sales agent has this property for sale, they call up the buyer's agent and say, look, I know you've got 20 people in your waiting list. Which one do you want to sell this to? And you can have it tomorrow for $500,000. The buyer's agents may or may not know that it's actually only worth 450. The clients definitely don't know because they're outsourcing the responsibility and they're outsourcing the accountability. And the buyer's agent has just seen to be, got an amazing deal, which is directly from the agent. The client is happy because they've closed a deal, and the sales agent is having a laugh because it's just the easiest thing they've ever done. An extended arm of the sales agent, especially in a hot market, The second thing I'll say is that to build agent relationships, they need to pay good money. A sales agent is more than happy, is over the moon when he just has this buyer's agent that's always buying properties for his clients off him. And he's not negotiating. He's not really taking that sales agent to town, because if he was really rinsing that sales agent for every last dollar, then the sales agent wouldn't give him so many properties, because that's a difficult sell. So when the buyer's agents make life easy for sales agents by paying over and above the true valuation for a property, no one really realizes that that's happening, and everything seems to be smooth, but the buyer's agent is doing a disservice.
Okay. I feel like we've kind of jumped into answering statement 4 a little bit there as well, but I'm sure there's more we can unpack to it. But Joe, just recapping on that, essentially the statement revolves around there's no incentive for a buyer's agent to get you a good deal.
Exactly like what PK's saying. There is a difference between buyer's agencies. But in terms of incentives, yeah, you 100%. Buyer's agents are incentivized to sell the property. Their goal is to find you an investment grade property, but it's not going to last. My business is 100% referral. If one client says, hey, I just worked with Joe and we got a poor outcome, then it's just I'm not going to have a business for very long because we're going to be giving poor results. And actually, I'll push this back onto you, Toddy. You were a real estate agent. You were helping people sell properties. Like, why bother trying to get the best rate for the client? Like, an extra $10,000 doesn't really mean much to your commission if you can have a smooth, easy deal.
I can't speak for all agents, but for me, and it's funny, I was actually just talking with Mike Mortlock about this just yesterday. It's the one thing I really do miss about being an agent. It's the sport. I loved it. You push back, it's a game, and all of a sudden, you're right. If I got someone an extra 10, 20, 50 grand, my commission, it would change. But by the time you take out GST, the house split, everything else, you're doing it for a few $100s. Like, it's not really much. But that incentive, when someone can now retire 2 years earlier or like go on an overseas holiday that they never thought possible, that genuinely feels amazing to do that. So, but again, that's me, but I don't know if every agent really operates that way.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to the person, like you're saying, Joe. It comes down to the operator.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll probably just say on that point that, like, you're right, a business, the number one feature of a good business is loyalty. It appears that that's the case in your business, Joe. Talking buyer's agents in general and picking up on that point of a business won't survive, I don't think that's true. There's plenty of businesses, both buyer's agents and in other industries, that have survived and flourished where they're actually not doing the best job for their clients. I can think of already dozens of buyer's agents, especially those who are maybe 5-10 years old, great Google reviews, all of this stuff. But when you see the results, it's the negative stories don't really come out that easily. So that's a problem in our industry. It's unregulated. It's a problem in every industry.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like buyer beware. If you want to use a buyer's agent, at least be educated enough to know what the true valuation of that property is, to know whether that suburb is good or not based on I'll give you an example. Logan. Everyone loves Logan, right? It's a hot topic. I can give you a narrative why you should invest in Logan, between Gold Coast and Brisbane, thriving population, hospital upgrades, blah, 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 blah. I can give you a narrative about why you shouldn't invest in Logan. High crime rate, high investors, and some suburbs is like 70% of all properties are investor properties. Tenants churn, they don't maintain. You can make up a story either way for anything. So I think it behooves people, even if you are using a buyer's agent, to actually be able to learn, is that the right suburb for yourself? Is that the right property for yourself? Is that the right valuation for yourself? And then if you want to outsource the execution, you can do that. At least you're holding them to account.
Yeah.
I'm just Googling the word behooves. It behooves.
That's a classic.
But one thing to mention as well is, like, when I'm finding an investment grade property, like an investment grade location, we run an in-depth analysis on the market on the area, on the property itself, and can provide a whole heap of comparables to back up exactly why this property is worth this. What we also do is we may not get the first property that we go out there and buy. Like my price, exactly like what you're talking about there, PK, my price is here. And if the market wants to get emotional and someone else comes in and wants to pay more, then unfortunately they pay 20 grand more. That's none of my business. We got to go and move on. That's what I do day in and day out. I don't get every single deal that we go for. I miss out constantly. And that's the value of a buyer's agent. Like it takes, I mean, how many times do you see it, Todd, in your real estate game where someone has missed out? Boom, missed out. Oh, that sucks so much. Okay, we'll get the next one. Boom, we'll get the next one. Oh, we'll get the next one. And it's like, I have a full-time job. I've got kids. I don't have time to fly down to Adelaide to research these areas. Like, then these people are easy pickings because you can negotiate with them. I don't know. Do you see that, Todd? Do you see like, what would you call it? What's that? Like
I don't anymore because I just sit in a dark room by myself with my dog and talk to people over Zoom. But yes, otherwise I did used to see that, and it's probably makes me sound like an ass, but you take advantage of it when you're an agent. If you see that someone is distraught and, well, not distraught, but you know that they're completely over it, they've got the make it stop face on, well then you can push them more.
Yeah. No, that's a really, really good point. And I think once again, I hope this debate isn't against you, Joe, because you're sort of a stand-up sort of guy. But talking about buyer's agents in general or the majority, what you're doing is not what they're doing. You know, like this, for example, I know a buyer's agent who operates in Brisbane. And this is the other thing, you know, there's two types of buyer's agents. There are ones that specialize in a locality, and then there are ones that are national. The ones that specialize in a locality, they say, well, we're always going to be better than the national ones or by you doing it yourself because we live here for like the last 10, 15 years. But the reality is that there's so many of them in Brisbane right now. They have made a lot of money over the last 2 years, but they're still touting Brisbane. Despite some suburbs now falling in value, now they've changed the narrative to say, oh no, but long-term growth is good, even if you lose 100K in the next 2 years, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, okay, well, national buyers agents should hopefully overcome that problem, right? That bias. Well, that could be true in one sort of school of thought. But then the problem is that most of these national buyers agents, once again, I'm not talking about you here, Joe, is that they're outsourcing the in-person inspections to property managers anyway. Yes. There's one that my client told me about recently that they use. Even in the contract for the buyer's agent, it says we do not guarantee that your property will be inspected, right? And when I hear sort of stuff like that, that kind of really boils my blood. It's like, what are you paying for?
Just before we continue down this path, the original point was there's no incentive for a buyer's agent to actually push the deal.
Yeah.
We may have strayed a little bit from the path, but just again, in the interest of time, I'm assuming it's safe to say, Joe, you disagree with that and say there is absolutely incentive. PK, you would be backing that, saying no, they don't really have the same incentive. Am I correct in saying that?
I forget what the question was, but I think that most buyer's agents are extended of the sales agent.
Okay, cool. Absolutely. Now, a statement that doesn't really agree with either of you, because I feel that this is also very much a my client, but this one just kind of tries to shut down both and says, you don't need a course, you don't need a BA, just read books, listen to podcasts. I've built a $5 million portfolio just by learning on the go as I went along. I didn't waste money on either because it gave me more to put towards actually investing in property. And just to clarify there, that is not a quote from me. That is a quote from someone that will remain anonymous when I was actually writing the statements for this episode. Who would like to go first?
His name was Stod's Tone. I'll let PK go first. But one thing I just wanted to ask you, Todd, is, you know, you've built an amazing portfolio. You love property.
That genuinely wasn't me. Like that.
Well done on your $5 million portfolio, mate.
Mine's 3. Like,
that wasn't.
that seriously wasn't me. No.
Oh, because the question that I was going to say there was, what business are you in? And it's real estate, right? You have all of the backing, so that's not you. Don't PK, jump in, mate. Let's get
the party started. No, I think we're going to be on the same page here, Joe. I can kind of feel it already. I think the problem statement is that there's too much of a chasm. There's too much of a divide between doing it alone and trying for a person to synthesize all of this fragmented data and information and opinion online and forums and podcasts and stuff, they just get overwhelmed. All right. And it's like, oh man, I just don't really want to make a mistake. Joe and all the other 3,000 buyers agents are right. I should use one because I don't want to make a mistake. It's also overwhelming. Right. But there's a divide between that and then having to use a buyer's agent. All right. So I would always say, if you can avoid paying for stuff and you have the ability to do it yourself, do it yourself. But that doesn't mean if you don't, that you all of a sudden need to jump to a $12,000, $15,000 solution, right? Every single property. I think there's something in the middle. The answer isn't binary. You know, a lot of the time people, they don't do it themselves because of lack of confidence, but then they don't want to use a buyer's agent. Like there's something in the middle. It's education. Right. And if you can be educated, I don't care if you use my course or whatever, lots of good courses, lots of bad courses out there. But there's something in the middle where, okay, I don't have 15 hours a week to make this a part-time job, but I do have 3 to 4 hours a week, you know, over a couple of months to learn and execute. And that is practical if you're learning in a systematic, structured way. And if you don't have 3 to 4 hours in a week, then perhaps that's when you look at a buyer's agent, right? So I'm trying to be unbiased. This is just the honest truth of the matter. But I think the problem, once again, lies with if you just go with a buyer's agent willy-nilly, there's no strategy development. And once again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Joe, because I think you guys do this pretty well. But a buyer's agent is not going to sit down and with you and say, all right, in 15 years, you want 100K passive income. How many properties will you need? What are their respective values? What are their respective yields? Which ones will you keep forever? Which ones will you sell? How do we structure your lending strategy?
Yeah, that's exactly.
This is something that's missing from the buyer's agent traditional model. I know, Joe, you guys do it really well, but most buyer's agents don't. It's a transaction for them. And so then you're kind of in this position. You've got a couple of properties, you paid for a couple of buyer's agents, but you're like, okay, I don't know if they're good. I don't know where the next one should. I don't know my strategy. I'm still kind of lost. And then you're like, oh, well, let me just continue using the buyer's agents. And all of a sudden, you've bought 5 properties and outlaid $50,000 to $100,000 on buyer's agent fees. That could be a deposit. That's almost 2 deposits, right? So that's kind of my answer. That before you pay for a course, try to do it yourself. Before you pay for a buyer's agent, try to find a course that does it. If not, then use the buyer's agent.
Okay, so you almost look at this as steps.
Yeah, it's like a hurdle. You know, it's like when I used to work at Virgin Australia as the head of strategy there, and you know, we're like, okay, how can we rinse out the most money from paying guests? You know, you don't just want to Virgin Australia, right? You buy the seat, and it's like, okay, you want to select that seat, that's a little bit extra. You get money, you want to get food and beverage, it's a little bit extra. You tier things. So I think people need to tier the value proposition in their head, but as opposed to just saying, do it myself with no confidence or just skip all the way to a buyer's agent.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, that strategy piece is a big part of what we do in our business. Exactly like what PK has been saying the whole time. Buyer's agents are different. That's a big piece that I wanted to chat to, but also no matter how many times you scale out a buyer's agent, if I am saving someone, 15, 20, 50 hours of going out there and doing all of the stuff themselves, along with getting a $22,000 reduction and getting a good investment location and getting them a good property. If you're saving $22,000 every single time, let's just say that buyer's agent fee is 15, you're up money. You times that by 5, you times it by 10, you times it by 100, you're still getting a return on your investment. So it doesn't matter how many times you scale out. Yes, it'll be a deposit, but there's no way you would be able to get to that next one if you didn't have the right strategy.
What do you think about this though, Joe? Like, I think that's a classic argument for a buyer's agent, right? You pay us money, we get it, we're expensive, but we're going to get you a return on investment. Well, what's your honest thoughts on the opportunity cost of that? So for example, let's say I said that a person can get that $22,000 off negotiating after the building and pest inspection. There's a few things wrong. It's not quite worth 22 grand, but you get 22 grand off the contract price anyway. What if they can do it themselves with education and it's not a part-time job? It actually isn't that hard because property buying is not rocket science, right? So I think it's about the opportunity cost. Yes, a buyer's agent has a return on investment. I was talking to Todd about this. I actually think that there's a return on investment on good buyer's agents, but the opportunity cost is that same returns without the cost with the empowerment of being taught how to fish instead of just being given a fish.
You are going up against a trained expert in property negotiation. So when it comes to the negotiation, I've been doing sales for 13 years. I know how to negotiate with salespeople.
But could we make this less about you, Joe? Because like, let's just generalize.
Well, then, I mean, actually, you know what? To make a good point on your side of the things, I was the head of sales for a legal technology company, and I love property. I was messaging you, PK. I was messaging you, Todd. We were, I built this group. It's been amazing. I wasn't the busy person in the world. I worked 9 to 5:30, did that every day, but I still used a buyer's agent to be able to go out and find an investment grade property. Now, the first property that I bought was through a buyer's agent, exactly what PK was saying there. A general location, but I still used a buyer's agent to be able to do it because they saved me the time, the energy, the resources, the missing out on property. They missed out on a property. There's no emotional impact to me. They take all the brunt. Hey, do we get that one? No, we didn't. Great. On to the next one. Perfect. Let's go to the next one. It didn't take anything away from my life. And if you put a part-time effort into something, you're going to get a part-time result. If you put a full-time effort into something, you're going to get a full-time result. And that's what buyers agents do all day, every day, is they work on finding, negotiating, and securing property.
So coming back to the point then, Joe, and especially like kind of wrapping around your statement there around, no, it's all right, you're on it. If you put a part-time effort in, you're going to get a part-time result. If you put a full-time effort in, you're going to get a full-time result. The point here being you don't need either just do it yourself. If you do want to just do it yourself, you need to be putting in a full-time result. Is that kind of what you're saying?
If you want to do it yourself, you need to put, full-time effort in. And also, actually disagree with one of PK's points there about getting educated. No, you said like, you should, like, if you want to try it yourself and then get educated, 100% do not do that. Get educated first, because you're going to do exactly like what I spoke about at the beginning.
That's what I mean, Joe. I don't mean just take a stab in the dark. What I mean is like, try to get educated yourself before paying for a course or something like that.
If I can jump in on that for anyone listening as well, educated doesn't mean sign up to my 2-hour free seminar so I can sell you off the plan apartment.
No,
just for everyone. None of us are saying that. I don't even need to ask you guys if you agree with that.
And that's the other thing. That's one of my pet peeves, Todd, where a buyer's agent creates a $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 course, and it's like, that's a gateway drug onto their full service, because that they're not going to give you everything you need. And it's like they've made $3,000 and now they're going to make another $15,000 because now you've built trust in them. You've listened to someone for 10 hours in a course. You're like, this guy's legit. It's a classic bait and switch. But coming back to your point, Joe, around it sounds really cool. A full-time job or full-time endeavor is going to give you a full-time result. Part-time. I'll come back to my analogy of gardening. I love gardening. There's a thing that that says that the best fertilizer is the gardener's shadow, right? That I found that to be very, very true. But I'm a very good gardener. I can see my backyard right now. There's pawpaw trees, mango trees, all sorts of things, but it's not a full-time job. All right. I probably YouTube every couple of weeks, learn how to sow a seed in a particular type of plant or whatever, and it gives me fruits. So I feel that property investing is the exact same. If you can educate yourself, and I'm not just saying watch a YouTube video every couple of weeks, but educate yourself seriously, 3, 4, 5 hours a week, including implementation for 2 weeks, that is not a full-time job. That's not even a part-time job. You'll get the fruits.
If we go to the last statement here, so much of the value a BA offers is in leveraging existing relationships to provide off-market deals for their clients. Even if you know everything about an area, you can't compete with a strong existing relationship that gets the first phone call. Who would like to go first?
You go, PK. I'm sure you've got some top tips on there.
Buyer's agents talk about relationships, and they do have relationships. I heard a buyer's agent once say that we've been buying in this area for 5 years. There is no way you can compete with our level of relationship, and we're like part of the fabric in this suburb or in this cluster of suburbs. And then I asked that buyer's agent, like, why have you been buying in the same area for 5 years? Like, surely if it was a good area, it would have gone up and you'd move on to the next area or to the next quote unquote hotspot, to which they had no reply. So once again, not everyone's like this, but when you're a new property investor, when you're a newbie and you're listening to podcasts like these, it's so easy to be tripped up and, cajoled as prey for a lion. You're just eating up anything they say. You need to be very careful of what you accept and what you reject. And the second thing is, let's just call a person Bennett. They lived in Melbourne, and this is in start of 2021, right? Bennett, fresh migrant from India. I have a lot of migrants that I work with, but he's not a client. Let's go with that. And he wanted to buy a property in the Gold Coast in a suburb called Pacific Pines. I love that suburb. It's a really nice suburb. And he was saying, look, PK, I want to buy it off market. I want to get a really good deal. I was like, well, just do what it says to do. And he did. And this is literally it. For 3 Mondays in a row, he picked up the phone to a bloke like Todd in Pacific Pines and said, hey, Mr. Agent, this is my situation. I have my pre-approval ready to go. I'm ready to buy. This is my budget, et cetera, et cetera. If there's anything that comes online, anything that comes offline, off market, please give me a ring. I'll buy it off you. And then one Wednesday, after 3 weeks of doing this, spent 10 or 15 minutes cultivating that relationship every Monday. So this sales agent, she called Bennett and said, there's this unfortunate situation with this owner. They need to sell ASAP. They're a private person. It was actually a divorce. They don't want people to know about it. It's yours. The property is yours if you want it, but you need to get the contract signed today. Bennett picked up the phone with a property manager. Property manager went through it. It was only built 10 years ago, not huge issues or any issues really. He got the deal done that evening, right? That's a real story. And I don't want to take credit, right? Like anyone can do this. If he just simply got on the phone for 10, 15 minutes, cultivating that relationship with the sales agent over 3 weeks, if he had that much time, anyone can get that property under market, off market. That property is worth about 750 or 800 right now. I bought it for about 500. So buyers agents can do the same thing.
Incredible
if you didn't want to do those phone calls, but you can do it yourself as well.
Okay. So building the relationship is something that anyone can do is your stance on this. This isn't something that's exclusive to buyers agents, and buyers agents that say we've got these really long-term relationships. You kind of see that as a bit of a red flag. Is that right?
Absolutely. And off-market deals aren't the bee's knees either. There's plenty of terrible off-market deals that aren't worth buying. In a lot of cases, sales agents will give off-market deals to buyers agents who will then send it to their clients saying it's off-market. And the sales agent will, exactly. They'll say it's $50,000 more and they'll get ripped off.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like I get these emails all the time where I get this amazing off-market opportunity, and then they're like, "Hey, we've got this amazing off-market. Great, send it to me." What are you talking about? Why is it 500,000 when it should be 450? Like, if you don't, you can get on those lists, but do be aware. Like PK saying, like some of the lists are little tricky, sneaky ones.
So as far as the relationship's concerned, then even getting that email, Joe, is that something that you put a lot of value on for buyers agents? Or actually, let me reword that. Is that something that you actually think buyers agents bring a lot of value to the table with?
Yeah. And the question was, so much of the value of a buyer's agent offers in leveraging existing relationships. I wouldn't say the key point, if people are leveraging relationships to sell you their services, I don't think that that's the right way to go about it. I think it's very important to cultivate relationships. I was in Adelaide, last week, having breakfast with real estate agents, working with developers and things like that to be able to get hot leads in when they come in. So those relationships do exist. They are real. I'm servicing an off market at the moment. I just got a call from the agent just now. So we will end up buying that property, but you still have to do the research and the data and make sure that you're actually buying it at a good price. So I kind of agree and disagree with this. You can't compete with strong relationships if you have them, but a one call to one agent is a bit too far of a stretch to say, well, I just have one agent, I'll call them 15 minutes. No, you've got to call 5 agents. You call the top 5 agents in the area, call them for 15 minutes every day, and then eventually you'll find something. Just sounds like your guy got a little bit lucky potentially, but it is.
No, he was doing exactly that. Not every day, but once a week.
Once a week.
Just go on ratemyagent.com.au, top 5 agents, 10 minutes every Monday, done.
Yeah, so every day you're going to annoy the crap out of
No, you wouldn't do it every day. Sorry, I meant every week. But again, you've got to do it to 5 agents. So that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So that's an hour. And then you've got to do the research. It takes a lot of time. But yeah, just to go back to the point, I don't think it's the biggest value of a buyer's agent. I don't think existing relationships are very important. Like there's deals that we get that nobody else is going to get.
But it's not the be all and end all.
It's not the be all and end all.
What's
It's
your
all
experience, Todd? Like, you've been a sales agent. Let's say Todd's a buyer's agent and he's trying to get off market deals, and I'm not a buyer's agent. I'm just Joe Blow. And we're both like, I'm a nice person. I'm just, how's your day? How's the weekend? Just heads up. This is what I'm all about. If people are nice, would you favor a buyer's agent, or are you kind of ambivalent as long as that person seems professional, is going to be easy to deal with, and is a nice person?
Yeah, I actually did a whole episode on this on the property couch with Bryce and Ben. I called it Return on Relationship. And it's totally true. Where there is a bias, but it's not even the fact that it's like, hey, they're a nice person. It's sometimes it's just because they are a nice person, they're actually the first to pop to mind. And you might just think of them and you're like, oh, actually, yeah, PK's been looking for a property like this, or Joe's been looking for a property like this. But at the end of the day, for me as a former agent, it's still always had to be like at top of the list. Am I getting the best result for my client? And sometimes the best result, as we've said a million times on the show before, I'm sure both of you have said publicly as well, isn't actually a financial one for the client. And when I say client, I mean vendor in that situation. I've sold properties before and said to them, like, we can get you more money if we take this to market. But they're like, no, we've got XYZ happening. Like, we don't care if we can get an extra 20, 30 grand. If this can be closed now in like 20 days, then that's actually worth more to us. So it does, yeah, I think it definitely works, but I kind of agree with both of you in this setting. It's like it does work, but if it's the only string in a BA's bow that they just keep plucking, well, then there's probably a few skill sets missing there as far as I think. But this isn't about what I think. This is about what you guys think. This is your debate.
Yeah, it's true. And also, like, the real value is knowing an area so well that you can jump on a deal when it happens. Like, there's no way a buyer's agent could say, I get all the off-market deals from all of the agents. Like, it's just knowing an area so well, so intently, that when a deal pops up online, like yesterday, right? I didn't get a call. I didn't get that magical call from the agent. They just listed it, but I was able to act quickly and make it happen within that period of time, like within a short period of time, to secure the deal.
I'll just make one small point on that as well. What you've said is absolutely true, and I'm not taking away from that at all. Just based on my own experience with clients, oftentimes with a buyer's agent, there's an additional hurdle. The sales agent gives it to the buyer's agent, or the buyer's agent finds it on realestate.com or whatever. And then there's a period of like 2 to 3 days in which the buyer's agent needs to quote unquote sell it to their client. The client might be super skeptical. Why this area, or why this property, or let me think about it, I need to speak to my wife, I need to sleep on it. But if you aren't using a buyer's agent, you've already done that homework up front because you know what you're doing. You're educated. As soon as you see the property, you can get it off market. You can get it off the market, I should say, under contract within an hour, within 2 hours, within 3 hours. There's not that additional friction of having to sell it to yourself because you already know what you're doing. So that's probably just another counterweight to what you're suggesting, Joe.
Completely disagree with that. Completely disagree with that.
We do need to wrap this up, Joe, but if you can give us your disagreement in like 30 seconds, and actually 30 seconds this time.
Well, like, I mean, it's not much of it. It wasn't a massive point, but I'm never selling a client on a property. I say, this is what we're going to buy it for, and this is the reason. You do it all up front, and then they can move fast on the deal. As you say, PK, speed for deals is the most important thing. And if you can't move fast, you need to, like, you're not going to get a good deal. There's no way there will be a 3-day delay because the deal's gone, especially in the hot market. No way.
I'm just saying from what my clients are telling me, or what agents are telling them. The agent has said, this other person, the buyer's agent, they're taking a day too long. You can have dibs at it. I'm just talking from experience. It might be a inappropriate sample size, but it's real.
Okay. All right, wrapping everything up from both of you guys, if we can actually have, I guess, the overall statement of, is a buyer's agent worth it? If I've listened to both of you correctly, I think the answer is it depends. Sometimes depends on who it is, depends on how much time you've got, depends on what your skill set is. Do you actually have a passion to learn property? Because some buyer's agents, no, they're absolutely not worth it. They're garbage. Some buyer's agents, yeah, they're absolutely brilliant, worth their weight in gold. But can you do it alone? Well, yeah, you can. But you're going to have to put in some effort, put in some time, put in some, even some financial backing. Would you guys agree with that as a bit of a summation to the entire episode? It depends.
Yeah, I agree with that. It does depend. You do not, yeah, it's fine if you don't. Yeah, no, you do not need a buyer's agent. You do not need a course. You can go out and make this happen by yourself. It's just at the speed and acceleration of where you're looking to get your goals. How long is it going to take for you to do it? And if you have the knowledge, the time, the energy, the resources, the tools, the tricks, the tactics, the confidence, the negotiation ability, and all of that, then absolutely you can go out there and do it. But If you don't have that, then use someone that has all of those things.
Okay, PK, anything you want to add as some final words there, mate?
Look, I think everyone's an expert in property. In Australia, there's 25 million experts, so to speak. Everyone has an opinion. There's hundreds of courses. They'll all use scare tactics to say, look, if you don't do my course, then you'll fail. There's thousands of buyer's agents that all say, if you don't use me, you'll fail. Everyone knows what's up. You know, people aren't dumb. My hypothesis when I first started was that, because I've never used a buyer's agent myself for residential property, was that I can do this myself. I don't trust anyone. Everyone's just trying to do smoke and mirrors, and that happened to me. So it's kind of from my own experience.
Okay.
And what I validated in my hypothesis was that if you don't have about 4, maybe even 5 hours a week over a couple of months, then use a buyer's agent, right? You don't have enough time. You need that 4 or 5 hours a week over a couple of months. Or if you have zero interest, then you might look to outsource. But if you have that, just that time, it's not a part-time job. It seriously isn't. This is not surgery. It's gardening. If you have that time, if you have interest, then you can do it yourself. That's always been my mission. I think good buyer's agents are worth it. If you don't have these 2 ingredients, if you do have these 2 ingredients, then they're not worth it.
I love that. This is not surgery, it's gardening. That's brilliant, PK. Anyway, guys.
I'm pissing Joe off big time here. Can we still be friends?
The problem is I just like that analogy so much as well. It's upsets me how much I like it.
Well, it will upset both of you if you saw my garden. I actually brought Mike around very purposely after 6 o'clock last night because I didn't want him looking out the back. I'm very much not a gardener, but anyway, mate, I think we're going to leave it there. But before we go, I've asked both of you what your favorite pizza is. And I actually did this on the episode with Jack and Sammy last debate. Instead of asking your favorite pizza, if we can get you to both agree, if you're sitting down, you're catching up for one, what pizza would you both agree on to order?
Oh, how long do you have?
I have no idea. What would you want, PK?
Well, I kind of scripted my answer for this, and I was going to say like bread pizza. You know, like when you want something that tastes like pizza, but you don't have time to make one, you just put a slice of bread in the toaster and you put some like sauce on and a few things on top. Tastes pretty close to pizza, and it takes about 4 or 5 minutes.
I have not done that. Okay.
Down with that. I'm down with that.
Pizza. All right. But fellas, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think we've definitely given a lot more information to anyone that's thinking, should I be using a buyer's agent? Should I be doing it alone? And giving everything that you had from the very beginning there, guys. But thanks a lot for jumping on. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, PK. See you guys.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Joe. Jake.
That kind of did and didn't go the way that I thought it was going to. But like PK was actually a lot softer on this than what I thought, because whenever I think PK and buyer's agent, like putting both of those together, I literally have the green throwy up face emoji always comes to mind, because that's what he does a lot of in the marketing side of things. And fair enough from his point of view. He's very passionate on the education side of things. This is what you can do for yourself. And then Joe in the mix with that, basically saying, I was picking up from that. Not sure what you guys got from this. I'd be genuinely very interested to hear. It kind of did feel like they were almost both like pushing against each other, but then would kind of go, oh yeah, well, I guess there's some merit to your side as well. No, like that debate wasn't like nah, you are wrong. Like this is out. No, you absolutely never need a buyer's agent. Like PK didn't take that stance, but then Joe also didn't take the stance of you absolutely have to every single time. That's really the takeaway that I get from this is, what the hell is your situation? That's what it's going to come back to. If you just do not care about property and you just want the results, then, well, yeah, you should probably look into using a BA. But if you absolutely love property and you're happy to dedicate the time to really learning about things, how it all works, well, then sure, start educating yourself. It's exactly what this show is for. But let me know what you guys think. Is a buyer's agent actually worth it? What is your result? What's like your experience been on the matter? But otherwise, guys, that is enough from me. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast. My name is Todd Sloan. And as always, have yourself an amazing rest of the week and stay awesome.